Good night, friends, and welcome once again. Tonight's topic is the Sabbath. I'm going to read a Bible verse from the King James Version Bible. Then we are going to pull the verse apart, dissect the verse, and go deeper to understand what the verse is trying to teach us. Okay, the verse is Exodus 31, verse 16. And I read, "Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations, for a perpetual covenant." Okay, Israel should keep the Sabbath. So who is Israel? We are going to stay within the confines of the Bible. Allow the Bible to give us the answers. Israel is comprised of Jews. Therefore, in identifying who is a Jew, we would also get the answer for who is Israel. Okay, first Bible verse, Romans 2, verse 28. And I read, "For he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh." So, physically, one is not a Jew who is physically, outwardly, in the flesh. Another verse, Romans 2, verse 29 rather. And I read, "But he is a Jew which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not in the letter, whose praise is not of men, but of God." So who is a Jew? One that is inwardly, spiritual. Circumcision of the heart. Okay, so towards the end of the verse, it reads, "and not in the letter," referring to the law. In the spiritual, the law is written on the heart, written in our hearts. But in the physical, it was written at Mount Sinai on 2 tables of stones. First the natural, then the spiritual. Okay, so a Jew is anyone who professes Christ, who professes to follow Christ. Spiritual Israel. Therefore, they should keep the Sabbath. Okay, so let's look at another word in the verse more closely. And that word now is the Sabbath. Exodus 16, verse 26. And I read, "6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day, which is the Sabbath, in it there shall be none." So the Sabbath is the 7th day. Exodus 16:29. And I read, "See, for that the Lord hath given you the Sabbath, therefore he giveth you on the 6th day the bread of 2 days. Abide ye every man in his place, let no man go out of his place on the 7th day." So clearly, the Sabbath is the 7th day, the 7th day of the week. And if we go to the secular meaning from a dictionary or Google, the Sabbath is Saturday, not Sunday. Over in the Eastern countries, for example, England, Europe, etc., these countries' work week begins on Monday, placing the 7th day Sabbath on Sunday. But this was done by the papacy. The papacy changed the day of worship from Saturday to Sunday in 538 AD. The calendar week was also changed from God's calendar to the Roman calendar, hence shifting the 7th day to the first day of the week. We were forewarned by Daniel that this would have happened. Daniel 7:25. And it says, "and thinks to change times and laws." You could read the rest of it in your own time. But this verse is talking about the papacy, the Roman Catholic Church, a thing to change God's calendar and His holy day. In America for now, the first day of the week is Sunday, but they will soon change that. In the near future, history will be repeated. The pendulum swings from east to west. Anyhow, that's another day, another topic. Moving along. Another word to look at closely is generations. Genesis 2 verse 4. The verse, Genesis 2 verse 4, and I read, "These are the generations of heavens and of the earth when they were created in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens." Genesis 5 verse 1. This is the book of the generations of Adam in the day that God created man. In the likeness of God, He made him. Okay, so generations means forever. The generations of the heavens are the angels, and they were created to live forever. The generations of the earth is from Adam, and we were all created to live forever. And even though sin had sidetracked God's plan, it will eventually come to pass, but for those who are faithful. Another word to look at is perpetual. And without even comparing scriptures with scriptures to get the meaning of the word, this word also means forever. You can compare these scriptures in your own time. That's your homework. The last word we are going to examine is covenant. And the first verse, Genesis 6 verse 18, and I read, "But with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons, and thy wife, and thy sons' wives, with thee." The other verse, Genesis 9 verse 9, "And I, behold, I establish my covenant with you, and with your seeds after you." So covenant is an agreement between Himself and His people throughout each generation. An example of covenant is marriage between husbands and wives. We make a vow not to break the covenant unto death do us part. That's the vow. It is meant to last for a lifetime. Until death do us part, that's a lifetime. So the natural likewise is spiritual. In summary, the Sabbath is an agreement between God and all who professes to be Christians, follower of Christ. And it is from generation to generation. For those who won't break it, unto death do us part. Many have thought that the Sabbath was done away with at the cross. In closely examining these teachings, we would see that this is false. What was done away with at the cross were the Sabbaths, with an S, the Sabbaths. The Sabbaths were the feast days, or otherwise called the ceremonial laws. These feast days were typically on the Sabbath, which were called Sabbaths, but they were separate from the weekly Sabbath. There were 7 feast days, which spread over each year, occurring 7 times for the year, whilst the weekly Sabbath remains every week and still remains each week today. There are many hooks in the Bible to hang our doubts upon. Okay, friends, I pray that someone received the light for this time, this session. And if there's any doubt, take it to the Lord in prayer, asking Him to reveal the truth to you so you may be able to settle intellectually and spiritually. Don't forget to like and share the video and leave a comment at the bottom. You know something, friends, before I go, many people receives the truth about the Sabbath, and yet they make excuses like, well, that's your Sabbath, as if we are gods and we can make any day holy. Or, I'm too busy on the Sabbath, I have to work, God will understand. Or, I have too many things to do or to get accomplished on Saturdays. Or I have no more time in the week to do my chores because I'm a student. Or the only time I can get this fix is on the weekends. Or. Many excuses. As if God is gonna say, okay, Johnny, okay, Mary, it's okay. You can go ahead and break my Sabbath. We could make 1,000,001 excuses. It doesn't change the fact. Rejecting the light, we are going to be judged for it, brothers and sisters. God is a loving God. He is a just God. But also, He's not a God to be trifled with. We are going to be judged for it. Okay for now. Until next time, stay blessed. Love you.